Well, I know I do a lot of videos on fuzzy animals and animals with feathers, but I thought today I would just show you a video about a scaled rescue. This is Merton. She came here with another turtle named Miami. She's the female, and you can see how big she is compared to my hand. Miami's a little smaller. Now these are ill-tempered turtles. These are red-eared sliders, and we keep them in 2 large 100-gallon livestock tubs in the basement. And I'm going to take you down there and show you what kind of filter setup we have. We have a homemade filter. Sometimes it's called a Skippy filter. It's just made out of a big bucket with a cover, and you only need to clean it out once a year. Yeah, that's right, just once a year, which is amazing. There's no smell from these filters if you do it right. And the right way to do it is let the filter run during the day, and then at night you turn it off. And the water drains out of the bucket, and all the bacteria on the filter material stays damp, but it's exposed to air. And I think that's why the bacteria are so efficient in breaking down the wastes. So I'm going to open one of the filters up today. It's fall, and I like to hose it off for the winter, and I'll show you how I do that. What do you think, Merton? Ha! I don't know why I don't know why red-eared sliders became some kind of a turtle that you'd want to keep as a pet, because they have bad tempers. They don't like people. They're not gentle turtles. They can't even be kept together because they will assault each other and bite each other. That's why she has to be in a separate tank than Miami. She's twice as big as he is. And we've had these guys 15 years, and they are probably over 20 years old. And the school didn't want them anymore. That's why we ended up with them. What do you say? And sometimes there's big reptiles like turtles, and you'll see them at humane societies waiting for homes. And if you like turtles and you have a lot of time to give turtles, because they'll live for 40 years or more if you take care of them, you can have a setup like this. You need to have a basement floor or a reinforced floor in your house, because this is a 100-gallon livestock tub, and it weighs over 1,000 pounds. Now, you can go to a fish store and get one of those German-made filters, and they're going to cost you around $400 or more. Or you can make a homemade Skippy filter like this. Now, the way this filter works is you need a small pond pump, and you need to have a hose that connects from the pond pump and comes all the way up and goes into one of these buckets that you can buy at any big box hardware store. And this hose goes all the way down to the bottom of the bucket. And then in the bucket you have different kinds of filter material, and I'll show you what ours is. And the water, when you turn the pump on, the water rises up through the hose. Okay, it rises up, it goes into the bottom of the bucket, it comes up and rises up, and when it gets to this point, it's going to flow out through a spigot that you've put on the bucket. That's how simple it is to have a Skippy filter. And you only need to clean these once a year. If you can believe it, this filter has not been opened or cleaned since last fall. And now it's time to open it and do it again. And I'm going to take it outside and show you what it looks like. And I'm going to use the hose to clean it all out. And it'll be good for a whole nother year. Now that doesn't mean that you don't have to change the water. The water in the tub needs to be changed completely. Because remember, these are reptiles. They don't have gills. They're not going to get hurt by gases in the water. So this needs to be changed completely, maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks, depending on how dirty your turtle is. And sometimes the water looks clean. You can see Miami down there swimming around. Sometimes the water looks clear and clean, but it's not. And if you take out a glass full or jar full of water, you'll see how yellow it is. And those are all the poisons from the urine and from the buildup of the waste. So even if the water looks clear, you still need to change the whole thing once every 2 to 3 weeks. But the Skippy filter can last for a whole year. Okay, let's take this one apart and take it outside and see what it looks like inside. Okay, I do this in the fall because then it'll be nice and clean for the whole winter. And if I would have to clean it out again in the spring, which I have never had to, then I can use the hose again, because this is messy and you want to use an outdoor hose if you can. Here's a turtle scoot that was laid on top of it. Somebody must have found it floating in the tub and put it on top. This comes off the turtle shells. This is how they grow. It's like parchment. Okay, so we're just going to remove the top and I'm going to show you what it looks like inside. Aha. Okay, on top I have this. This is just from the craft store. And it's one of those things you can do needlepoint on. It's a plastic needlepoint backing. And you can see how it's got a lot of scum on that. Underneath that, this is all just scrap stuff too. This is a scrap of a gutter guard material. And then under that is a bunch of nylon tool netting from the fabric store. This is about probably, I think, 3 or 4 yards. And that catches all the gunk. Let's take all that out. And if you dump the water on your plants, they'll really like the nutrients. So I'm going to dump it over here. And then at the bottom I have another gutter guard cut in a circle. And I'm just going to get the hose and hose this all out and clean out all the filter material as well. Okay, here's the netting. I hung it up over a fence and I just hosed it off. Now it's important that you don't use soap when you're cleaning out this Skippy filter, because although this looks cleaner and I got all the gunk off it, there are still bacteria coating all of this, and they're going to keep decomposing and eating the waste products from the turtles. So now I have to go take these things over there and just give them a hose off as well. It takes me about 10 minutes a year to clean out this filter. So I just hosed it out inside there, and I might do a little bit of cleanup on the spout here and do that in the basement. But I'm just going to put the whole thing back together now. And take it back. I'm going to take it back downstairs, and the hose is going to go back through this hole, and the hose is going to go back down to the bottom here and have it all the way down to the bottom. And then I'm going to wrap I'm going to wrap this around the hose, and then I have to thread the hose through these two things first before I put the hose back in there. But that's all there's to it. That was a year's amount of gunk. Not too much, because the bacteria chew it down and ingest it. But what a simple way of having a really powerful filter. And this can be used for goldfish, you know, or anything that's in a big tub. The only thing is that this thing has to be up higher than the actual water level. So this Skippy filter has to be stood up on something. It's an external canister type filter. So if you don't have the room, or you don't think it looks, you know, nice, if you want a fish tank that looks really nice, you probably want something smaller that's hidden and not some big can sitting there. But this is a cheap way of making a really efficient filter. Okay, time to put this back together again. So I've got the netting, and this is the piece of plastic that you can find in craft stores. It's used for doing needlepoint and yarn projects. And then I have the circle of an aluminum. You want aluminum so it doesn't rust and corrode. There's another piece of that aluminum down at the bottom. And the top. So we have to put it together backwards. And I took a cloth here and I just wiped off this hose to get all the gunk off of it. Like I said, you don't want to use hot water or cleaners. So the first thing that has to go back on, and we're doing this backwards as it goes down into there. The first thing is the cover. We have to put the hose through the cover. Pull that out of the way. And then the next thing we can put is the big aluminum grate. Put that on next. The hardest part of doing this is putting it back together. Okay, then comes this. Put that on there. And now that you've got those three parts on, I want to get this hose down. There's a hole down there in that grating, and I want to get the hose down, move this out of the way a little, and catch it under the grating there. To hook it in there, if you can see that, hooking that hose in there to hold it in place. Push that under there. And then the next thing is, this is the nylon netting from a fabric store, and I'm just going to put that down in there and kind of wind it around the hose. So the hose is hooked down underneath there. I have the netting, and now we're going to move these layers down into it. So here goes this one, and we want to go all the way down underneath the spout area. So I'm going to push it underneath. I said this is the hardest part, is getting this back, especially because this hose is it used to be flexible, and now it's so old that it's gotten rigid. So let's get this thing here, put that down in there, tuck it under that spout. Come on. Under the spout. Gee whiz. Okay, so it's making a sandwich, and I got to keep that hose down in there so the hose doesn't pop out. And then finally, the top goes on like this. All right. And now we're ready to put it back. Okay, so I got it back up on the shelf, got the hose back down, and I'm ready to plug it back in. Now once you plug it back in, don't be surprised if it takes a little bit for the water to get up to the point where it's going to flow out of the spout, because remember that pond pump right now is pumping the water, and the water is rising inside of the bucket. So it might take 30 seconds or a minute for it to get back to the top where it's going to flow out. And our little Miami, he's taking a nap down there. When I shut these off at night, and I found that shutting them off at night is important in keeping them working well, because I believe when you shut these off at night and you just shut off the pump, the water will drain back down through the hose, and actually all the material in that bucket is exposed to air. But it's kept wet, but it's exposed to air at night. And because of that, I think that's what helps the bacteria be so effective. So during the day, there it starts to go. During the day, they are underwater in there, and at night they are just on the wet stuff that's in there as a filter material. And that's what I think is the trick that keeps these from smelling. These don't smell at all. Even with all that gunk in them, there's absolutely no smell. Even when you take the cover off after a year has passed, there's absolutely no odor at all. And that's all because of those bacteria that have developed on there. So here's this one done. And I have 2 more to do this fall yet to clean them out for the winter. And if you think of adopting a big turtle, this might be a good setup for you, using a livestock tub and a homemade Skippy filter. So thanks for watching. And you notice now, here he goes. He says, all right, my stuff is back working again. As soon as it starts going, he gets active. And when I turn it off, he thinks it's time to sleep, just like when they sleep at night.